I'm Ashley Michaels, and this is Colorado Point of View. Last week, we talked about the one big, beautiful bill that passed the U.S. House. Now the budget reconciliation package is in the hands of the Senate. Our partners at The Hill are reporting that Senate Republicans are, quote, deeply divided over the president's wish list and that the bill will be rewritten over the next few weeks. Some of the sticking points include cuts to Medicaid and getting rid of renewable energy incentives. Any changes would then have to go back to the House, which only passed the current version by one single vote. Here's what President Trump said this week when asked about the fate of his plan.
We don't have one Democrat vote. And if I were a Democrat, I'd be voting for this bill and I'd get elected to any position I want as a Democrat. They're crazy. They're voting for a 65% tax increase. And they're only doing it for hatred. They're not doing it for any reason. They know it's terrible. Terrible politics, in my opinion. But so we have no Democrat votes. That means we have to get almost all Republican votes. And I think we're very close to doing that.
All right, joining us this week to talk more about it, we have Colorado Democratic Representative Jason Crow. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us again.
Ashley, always good.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
I know you're talking a lot about the budget right now. We have not had a chance to really dig into this. Where do you see some of the biggest impacts to Coloradans and to Colorado after what was passed in the House?
Well, this bill, what Donald Trump calls one big, beautiful bill, is actually the worst bill I have ever voted on in my entire time in Congress, which is actually saying something. Right? What this bill does is it's going to increase the deficit by $3 trillion. It gives massive tax breaks to the top 1% and the wealthiest corporations. It will cut health care, even end health care for 13 million Americans. Severe rollback from the increases of health care coverage from the Affordable Care Act, which added 20 million Americans. We're losing many of those folks now. And then severely cuts nutrition and food assistance for millions of Americans. This is a disastrous bill. 175,000 of my constituents, just in my district alone, are at risk of losing their health care as a result of this.
Now, we just talked about the fact that there's some friction in the Senate about what this future of the bill is going to look like. We assume there are going to be some changes. Do you expect that the final version of this will be a little bit more down the middle?
Well, I should sure and heck hope so, because there's no way I'm going to support this bill unless it addresses the things that I just talked about. I'm not going to add to the deficit. I'm not going to give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans on the backs of middle class America and working class Americans. I'm not going to risk health care for hundreds of thousands of Coloradans. I'm just not going to do it. So the Senate has to make massive changes. And if they don't, then I'm going to continue to resist this bill.
Now, last time you were here a few weeks ago, we talked a lot about the tariffs. There's been news about tariffs this week where a federal court has now blocked most of them, saying it's illegal, the blanket tariffs that went into effect. What's your reaction to this latest news?
Well, I applaud this decision because these tariffs, again, would be disastrous for Colorado businesses and manufacturers. You know, as we talked about last time I was here, I'm not opposed to the use of tariffs, right? Tariffs can be an important tool when they're used surgically and when they're pinpointed. The problem with broad-based tariffs is as the name implies, they apply to everything. And so many Colorado businesses and manufacturers have supply chains all around the world. You know, I talk to manufacturers in Colorado all the time that get their raw materials from, the Philippines or from Vietnam or from Europe or from Germany, and the tariffs are going to jeopardize their ability to manufacture products here in Colorado, which will impact thousands of Coloradan jobs. So this administration is going about it all wrong. We can't have broad-based tariffs. We should be smart about this and pinpoint those areas where we need to level the playing field for American businesses and American consumers. That I will support. The approach of this administration, I will not support.
Now, separate from the budget reconciliation bill that we just spent the last few minutes talking about, we are starting to hear about a defunding package that Congress is going to start working on starting next week that would essentially cut $9 billion after DOGE recommendations. How do you expect those negotiations to go, and what's going to be the impact of these kind of bills?
Well, I've just head scratching really isn't the way to put it, the way this administration is putting together a budget, because on one hand, they're blowing a hole through the budget, right? A $1 trillion defense budget is what they're proposing. They just also gave $150 billion of extra money to the Pentagon that the Pentagon didn't even ask for. They didn't even ask for it, and they pushed through $150 billion plus up to basically use as a slush fund to the Secretary of Defense and for Donald Trump. And then on top of that, you have Donald Trump's new Golden Dome, which is this supposed air defense system around America. This is 1980s Ronald Reagan stuff that, again, the Pentagon and our military leaders haven't even asked for. $25 billion for that. So they're doing all of that, and at the same time cutting things like PBS, cutting things like food nutrition assistance, cutting things like Voice of America, which are these radio stations and these TV stations around the world that promote democracy and peace and stability so that we don't have to send our men and women in harm's way. None of it makes any sense.
All right, I want to switch gears off of finances. You and I have talked a lot over the last couple of years about what's happening in Ukraine between Russia. Now, there's been an escalation in violence this week, as well as an escalation in words. Now, Russia's former president posted on social media saying, quote, regarding Trump's words about Putin playing with fire and really bad things happening to Russia, I only know of one really bad thing, World War III, end quote. What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is that Donald Trump is being played by Vladimir Putin and all of his cronies, completely played. You know, I support Ukraine and I support assistance to Ukraine because it's in the best interest of Coloradans. It helps keep food prices low because of the amount of grain and food material that comes from that region. It helps develop economic partnerships and promote our economy because of trade. Europe is our #1 trading partner, and to have peace and security and stability in Europe is good for our businesses. And it's good to make sure there isn't war in Europe so that we don't have to send our men and women into harm's way. We have 100,000 troops, roughly, at any given moment in Europe. So this is all in our interest. But we've known Vladimir Putin for a long time. He's been around for 30 years. He tries to draw things out. He says he's engaging in peace deals, but he really isn't. He engages with deals and will sign on the dotted line on the paper, but then undermine it. He's completely being played by Vladimir Putin here, Donald Trump. So there has to be a drastic shift in our approach to force Vladimir Putin to the table. Otherwise, he's going to do what he has been doing the last 30 years.
Is it more sanctions that you think should happen, or where do you think we go from here?
Yeah, I think a couple of things need to happen. Number one, the United States needs to lead the way in seizing the frozen Russian assets that have been seized since the start of this war. There are $300 billion of frozen assets of Vladimir Putin and his oligarchs that are in banks in the United States and Belgium and France. Let's take that money. Let's use that money to support defense assistance. I mean, U.S. taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for any of this. European taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for any of this. Vladimir Putin should be paying for this. That money is sitting there in banks. Let's take that money. Let's use it to pay for security assistance. Let's use it to help rebuild Ukraine. The money is there to pay for this. So that would start the process. Then second, what's called secondary sanctions. So Vladimir Putin can't go and sell his oil to the China and other countries around the world to support this war that's killing thousands of innocent people. That would be another really strong act by this administration that if they were serious about this, they could do tomorrow.
Let's bring the conversation back here to Colorado. I also want to ask you about, I know you've been busy hosting town halls in your district. What are you hearing from people in your community right now?
Well, energy is high. I've had 3 town hall events in the last 3 days. Had a big one with Senator Bennett in the southeast portion of my district on Tuesday night. Over 800 folks signed up for that town hall. Energy is high. People want to engage. They want to engage in our democracy. They want to roll their sleeves up and start working to build a better community, to build a better Colorado. So it's our responsibility, leaders' responsibility, to help provide opportunities for people to do that. So I talk a lot about civic engagement. I talk a lot about how problems are never going to be solved in Washington. Right? You look over American history, and Washington never solves these huge problems. Now, we have an important role to play, and we have to lead, and we have to legislate, we have to do good work. But it's America that solves problems. It's Americans that solve problems. That's where innovation comes from. That's where so much ingenuity comes from. So I'm trying to make sure that we understand this is a project that all of us have a part to play.
Are there any new things that you're hearing that you haven't heard before, something different that people are feeling right now?
Well, first of all, they don't want their health care cut. Right? This is the first time in my time in office where I'm looking at vast cuts to their health care. And even if folks aren't on Medicare and Medicaid, which, by the way, everybody knows somebody who is, maybe your parent, maybe your sibling, this is going to impact everybody. But the proposal of this bill that was just passed by the House Republicans and Donald Trump would take over $1 trillion out of our healthcare system. Imagine what happens if $1 trillion is taken out of our healthcare system. The clinic closures, the healthcare providers leaving the work, the closing of hospitals. This is going to send shockwaves across the entire system. You think it's hard to find a practitioner now? You think it's hard to get a doctor's appointment now? Just you wait and see what's going to happen if this bill passes.
All right. Well, thank you for being here and sharing your Colorado point of view. Always appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
After the break, our analysts will join us in studio. We're talking about federal funding cuts to NPR and how 3 local radio stations in Colorado are now fighting back. This week against the Trump administration over a recent executive order cutting off their federal funding. Colorado Public Radio, Aspen Public Radio, and KSUT in the Four Corners argue the president is infringing on their freedom of speech and freedom of the press because they would no longer be eligible for federal grants if they continue to license and broadcast content from NPR, which the president has accused of being politically biased against him. Now, those congressionally funded grants make up between 6 and 19% of each of those local stations' yearly operating budget. Let's bring in our analyst to talk more about it. On the Democratic side, we have senior presidential and gubernatorial advisor Andy Boyan, and on the Republican side, we have the director of Advance Colorado, Michael Fields. Thank you both for being here. Okay, so the real targets of the executive order are NPR and PBS, and the bigger question is, should taxpayers be funding a news outlet? Andy, we'll start with you.
Well, it's interesting. This is an interesting argument. First of all, Congress funds, not the president. So the president thinks he has this authority. He really doesn't. It's congressionally funded. Also, as you pointed out in the intro package, it's only about 19% of total funding. So if the president or Congress or both decide to pull funding, which won't happen, but if they do, obviously grants, scholarships, and other donations will fill that 19% in less than a day, I'm sure. So it's not really a big deal. But Trump, in his normal, bluffing on all this kind of stuff, there's a reason they call President Trump now the taco president. There's a lot to be said for how he is reverting back to retaliatory comments like this, retaliatory strikes, but he always chickens out on this stuff. And the reality is he doesn't have the authority, right? We've watched this in the courts go back and forth for a long time, but this is a clear violation of the First Amendment, clear violation of the Constitution. And really what's happened, this all centers around a couple of things for the president. One is that he said NPR didn't cover the Hunter Biden laptop story. So he's frustrated with NPR that he, can't have the authority to say what NPR wants him to say on air. And so the idea is basically to cut funding, just like he's threatened Harvard, just like he's threatened other entities. And really all they are is empty threats. He has no authority and he's an empty suit.
All right, Michael, we'll give you a chance to weigh in. Should taxpayers be funding a news outlet?
No, I don't think they should be at all. I think that this should be stopped across the board. So, obviously we're just talking here about NPR and PBS, which I do think, have some bias leanings, but I don't think the government should be in the business of deciding what does balance look like, who is biased, who's not, cutting this funding or not. This isn't the 1950s where we had to have emergency, things out on TV so everybody could see it. We have the internet now. The average home has 200 different TV stations already in their home. You have smartphones that can get out the tornado warning onto your phone. I don't think there's any place for the government to be involved in funding these things. And I do agree that this executive order, it doesn't have teeth necessarily because Congress is the one that funds and directs where this money goes. And so I don't understand the lawsuit to start with, because if there's no harm there, if nothing has happened yet, you can't sue over an executive order like this. So I think there's a lot of PR kind of happening on both sides. But I think the end result should be government should be out of doing this funding of media. No need for it. Let the free market deal with it. So
sort of along the same vein, and Andy, you just alluded to this, the president is also threatening to cancel federal funds for Harvard University. There's also student visa issues right now. Some of the appointments are currently paused. Trump also suggesting this week that maybe universities should cap enrollment he threw out the figure 15%. In the larger context, what do you make of the conversation surrounding higher education right now? Michael?
Yeah, so I think, it's a good topic of discussion, again, because there's funds that go in, there's decisions we make on visas. I think the visa question is an interesting one. I do believe that it's a privilege, not a right, to have people come here and learn. And I think Secretary of State Rubio had a really good talk about why this is an important issue and basically said, why are we bringing in international students that are going to be anti-American on campus and really disrupt other people's education, right? And that's what's happening in a lot of these cases. cases. So I do think they need to look into all these different things, all the policies, who's coming here, et cetera. I think every 4 years, federal government should be doing this anyway. With every new administration, you should be looking at all the different policies, how you're spending money, how are you approving visas, et cetera. But I do think that, anybody who hasn't seen that clip of Rubio talk about it, I think it's an important one to follow. And I think we need really the government involved in continuing this discussion.
Andy, what do you make of this discussion about higher education?
I think that's a dangerous precedent to set, to have the government involved in higher education in general, any more than they already are. And I think to threaten Harvard directly, which he's upset that his son didn't get into Harvard, and it's, again, retaliatory. This is stuff that 16-year-olds do on the playground and stuff in high school, and it's really sort of pointless to be arguing about this, particularly with the most powerful man in the world. It just doesn't make any sense to me that Donald Trump's spending his time, or maybe it should make sense given his track record and given who he is. But the idea about, now they're backtracking on this idea that they're going to pull foreign visas and kids out of class. They're pulling back on that. Judge Allison Burroughs just ruled recently that the preliminary injunction against doing this. So there's a lot of back and forth. He's losing his backside in court all the time. I mean, he's going into court and losing time after time. So there is no defense here. There is no defense of this. And the reality is, picking on Harvard because his son didn't get in is not only, wimpish, but it's also childish, and it has repercussions down the road because he's pulling funding for studies for disease control. He's pulling funding for, obviously, research and innovation that goes into how well the United States performs in terms of its innovation and performance in drugs to prevent malaria, drugs to prevent measles and rubella. So there's a lot there that Harvard has at stake. The other piece about this is, and I hate to be a broken record, but this is only a part of what Harvard takes in. So he's not really going to have an impact in Harvard's education by pulling funding, even if he wants to. Harvard's going to continue. Harvard's going to win this battle. And obviously, from a person who probably couldn't get into Harvard himself, now he's battling it, and he's bitter about it. It's too bad. And it's a waste of time.
All right, let's talk about a different court case. So a federal trial is starting in Denver on Monday involving MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell. He's going to have to prove the Colorado company Dominion Voting Systems rigged their election equipment to change the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. That's the claim he made. If he cannot defend it, he could be found guilty of defamation. Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Could the outcome of this trial finally put the conversation of 2020 to bed?
I think we're all hoping so. I don't think anybody at this desk is hoping that this continues after this trial. But, everybody who has been an election denier has said all we want is a day in court. That's all we want is a day in court. Well, here it is. Here's the opportunity for Mike Lindell, who is one of the most vocal advocates that Dominion was rigging the system, is going to be allowed to be talking in court. He calls it, Mike Lindell said, it's the most important case in our lifetime. But the reality is, I think he's a complete wackadoodle. And at the end of the day, the problem with this argument is he has no case. As you said, you got to put it up and put up the truth, or you got to shut up. So put up or shut up. But at the end of this trial, he's not going to put anything up. It's going to be a waste of time, again, for the courts. And at the end of the day, an embarrassment to those that continue to be election deniers when there was no election rigging at all.
Michael, what are you watching for in the outcome of this trial?
I think, we talked about two cases recently. The other one was Tina Peters, and, is she going to get a pardon or get out, et cetera. I think that one's much more important because it was an elected official who was doing illegal things and ends up in jail for this. I think people have freedom of speech. They can say stuff, but then there are defamation lawsuits that can be brought. And so as a company, I understand them bringing it. I don't know how much, how relevant it really is to everybody's everyday life now. We do, we're 5 years later. Trump has been reelected again. I don't think anybody besides Mike Lindell and probably Tina Peters are still talking about the 2020 election, given where we are. But I'm looking just to see what that outcome ends up being, right? You have a certain legal standard. You have to hit defamation. Did it happen or not? But this is a private citizen, and I'm more worried about elected officials like Tina Peters, who really undermine faith in the system as an elected official.
All right, let's switch topics. Now, we don't often debate architecture here on Colorado Point of View, but today is that day, fellas. Governor Polis announcing this week his plans to build a new raised sidewalk outside the state capitol, and this is to celebrate Colorado's 150th birthday. Take a look. This is what it is going to look like. Hopefully we can bring those pictures up. Well, in any case, it takes walkers on a path from the capitol up and over Lincoln Street to the park across the street, and it's meant to mimic Colorado's flowing rivers. But the nonprofit Historic Denver is now calling this functionally useless. They also question the $20 million price tag. So I'm going to give each of you about a minute to weigh in here. You guys spend a lot of time over in this area. Michael, we'll start with you. What do you think of this and the price tag?
Well, the area has changed a lot over the last decade or so, and you look at the picture that we didn't get to see, but it looks nothing like that now, even if you put in this sidewalk bridge. I think it is a waste of money. I think that we need to clean up that area. We need more security. We can spend money on better things in Denver than that. And I do, worry about people that wanting to come down near the Capitol, wanting to come down to this area. Used to be a lot more people that came down, tourists, etc. That's not happening, and I don't think this is going to fix it. We need to put that money into security, cleaning up that area.
All right, Andy, I'll give you the closing word on this one. What do you think of this plan?
I agree with Michael, actually. I think it looks awkward. When you get a chance to look at the picture, I would look at it as a Coloradan. I would look at it as a visiting Coloradan and think, what do you think about it? It doesn't fit the architecture. Obviously, I don't know anything about architecture, but I look at it, it doesn't fit. But I also think that for the state's 150th birthday, maybe we could spend money in other places. I agree with Michael as well. We have a lot to do in downtown Denver to bring people back, have people feel safe, have people feel like it's the downtown we remember. And it truly is. And we're getting back to that point. It's just taking a while, and it's taking money. We should put money in those places. And with all due respect to the governor, this is a waste of money.
All right, we'll have to see what happens. Thank you both for the conversation. After the break, we are learning some new information about the future of U.S. Space Force, a Colorado congressman's latest push to keep it in Colorado. Well, the fight continues to keep Space Command in Colorado. Earlier this month, the Senate confirmed a new Air Force secretary. He's now facing tough questions from Colorado's congressional delegation over the idea of moving Space Command from Colorado Springs to Huntsville, Alabama. Colorado's lawmakers have been lobbying against a possible move for years now over costs and national security issues. Well, now Republican Representative Jeff Crank from Colorado is offering a new argument, saying that separating Space Command and Northern Command in two different states would also put at risk one of President Trump's newest defense initiatives.
They've got to be seamless in their efforts to communicate. And, we don't want any delay in getting Golden Dome up and running. And, it seems to me that moving a command and having that additional concern of and challenge of moving a command, that's going to slow us down in the implementation of Golden Dome.
The chair of the House Armed Services Committee is a Republican representative from Alabama. He told Fox News this week he's talked about the future of Space Command with the Air Force's new secretary and says based on that conversation, he's, quote, fully expecting the move to happen. Well, thanks for joining in on the conversation. For Colorado Point of View, I'm Ashley Michaels. We'll see you right back here next week.